Alright, in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to rig this single foot character for your animation and rigging exercise. So I'm going to use the same character which I've created earlier. Okay, so make sure you ensure the character meets the requirements. That means the body has multiple edge loops. Okay, the foot also have multiple edge loops. So later it will deform properly. Okay, I don't need these two guys, so I can select them and delete them away. So I'm going to rename this character, okay, just by clicking on it. And if you go to your channel box right over here, you can actually double click on this and change the name. So I'm going to double click and change original cube name into character. Right, and also I want to get rid of the edit history that I previously have done to this character. So to do that, I have to delete history. So you can use your custom shelf here to create a bunch of quick shortcuts. So to delete history, you go to edit, delete by type, and click on history. So now the history is clear for this mesh object. So if you want to delete history again, rather than going to the menu, you can actually create a shortcut here. To do that, click on edit, and then I'm going to tear out this menu so you can see delete by type, and with the history highlighted, hold on onto your Control Shift and left mouse click. Okay, so now you notice in your custom shelf you have your custom shortcut key available here. So right now I'm going to close this. I'm going to create two more custom shortcut keys. They're inside the modify menu. Right, inside the modify menu you'll be using these keys quite a lot. That is the center pivot and the freeze transformations. So for the center pivot, I'm going to press Ctrl Shift and left mouse click to create the center pivot shortcut, and also the freeze transformation. So Ctrl Shift and left mouse click to create the freeze transformation. So now I'm going to close this and let's start. So first thing I want to do is I want to freeze the transformations of this character. Now when you create the cube, it should be lined up with the origin. Alright, so it should be in dead center. So if you look at the channel box, the translate should be 0, and because previously we raised the cube up, so there is this value here. We're going to leave that for now. Okay, the translate Z is also 0. Rotate XYZ is also 0. So scale is 1, so we leave it at that. So but we want to zero this value out. So go ahead and click on freeze transformations. Okay, right now you can see now all the values are 0. And if you click on the 4 views, just by tapping the space bar, you'll notice that the character is nicely lined up in the origin. The foot is on the ground, okay, and is facing me right at the center here. Okay, I'm going to press Alt B to change the background color a bit so that you can probably see the black lines a little bit clearer. So you must get your character dead center. Okay, I'm going to move the cursor over to the perspective view and tap my space bar to maximize it again. If you press Ctrl A a couple of times, you should be able to see the channel box and the layer editor. I want to put this character into the layer editor. Okay, if you look over here, there are a bunch of icons here. With the character selected, go ahead and click on this button here. Okay, this button will create both a layer and at the same time add the selected object into the layer. So click on it, and now I can choose to show the character by clicking on this V, so make the character viewable. And then there is this empty box here. By clicking on it, you can change it to template mode or reference mode. Okay, when you're in template or reference mode, okay, you cannot edit the character anymore. And if you're in template mode, alright, you can actually see through the character. Alright, so I need to select the character first. Okay, right now it's not selectable. Okay, I need to disable this box here. Alright, so by clicking it, so you can cycle between the different modes here. There's template, there's a reference, and then there is the normal default mode where I can select the character. So right now I can still select this. I'm going to create bones inside this character, or I want to create joints. So in Maya they call the bones joints. So in order to create the joints properly, you need to be in the orthographic view. So I'm going to switch to the right view. Now the quickest way to switch to the right view will be to tap and hold the space bar, left mouse click and hold on the Maya, and then go to right view. Okay, so I got these two little windows here. You can see what are the keyboard commands and the mouse commands that I have used. Right, so this can help you find out what keys I have pressed. Okay, so once you're in the side view, okay, you can go to your layer editor with the object selected. You can click on it until you change to template mode. Okay, right now it's a bit hard to see. I'm going to change the background color by pressing Alt B. Okay, so when it is in template mode, the mesh is grayed out, so we can see where it is, but we can't really select it. Okay, so I want to keep it that way for now. Okay, keep it at this way for now. So now we have to change our mode into animation mode. So to do that, go to the polygons here, the menu here, click on the drop down menu. Okay, click on the drop down menu and change it to animation. And so we can have this skeleton menu here. So when you change the animation, the menu options change. So click on the skeleton tool, or rather click menu, and click on the dotted line to tear it out. You will have this tool called the join tool. Okay, so just follow the instructions first. So click on the option box and reset the tool, right? And you will be in joint creation mode. So to create the joint, you start off at the base of the neck, okay, and then create the joint by clicking the knee, the second joint by clicking a knee here, and then click on the heel or the ankle here, then followed by the foot, and then finally the toe joint. Now if you notice something that looks a bit weird, there is the joints are rather big. Okay, so once you finish doing these joints, you can press enter to finish. Now if the joints are too big, you can go to display, animation, and click on joint size and reduce the joint size. Okay, so now I got the basic leg joints created. So you can choose to rename your joints, okay, so that make it easily identifiable later by switching to by opening the outliner view. So you can click on window and select outliner. Okay, so you can see the joint hierarchy here represented by the outliner here. You can see a plus box here. You can click on the plus box and you can open up and see the entire hierarchy, and you can see how the joints or the different bones are linked together. They are in fact parented to each other. Okay, the joint 5 is the child of joint 4 and so on. So for the first joint, you can rename it and call it the neck and hip, then underscore JNT, and double click on this one and call it the leg, and then underscore JNT. Now instead of using spaces, it's best to use underscore. Maya doesn't like to spaces. So for this one, I'm going to call it ankle underscore JNT, and then this joint number 4, I'm going to call it ball underscore JNT, the ball of the foot, and finally the last joint, I'm going to call it toe underscore JNT. Alright, so we have done our joint hierarchies and also named it accordingly. So next we want to create a joint for the head so that we can deform the head later on. So go back to the joint tool again, click on joint tool, and I want to create a joint, a single joint just above the hip neck joint. So click once and then click on the tip of the head to finish. Okay, so I'm going to rename this. I'm going to call this joint 1 in the outliner. I'm going to call this head underscore JNT, representing joint, and then this one I call this the head tip, okay, JNT. Alright, you can give it any names you want just to make the joints easier to identify. Alright, so next I want to set up the controllers. The controllers are in the form of NURBS curves. So let's start off by going into the perspective view. So I'm going to tap my spacebar, or rather hold my spacebar, tap and hold my spacebar, click on Maya and change to perspective view. Okay, so go and click on create. Under your NURBS primitives, make sure you turn off the interactive creation mode. So go ahead and uncheck this. Okay, so create NURBS primitives and uncheck this one, interactive creation. After you have done that, click on create NURBS primitives circle. Okay, so this circle will be your controller. Alright, so you're going to duplicate several of them. So I'm going to scale this one up first. Okay, scale it until it encompasses the entire character. And then I'm going to call this main underscore CTRL. So main control. I'm going to press Shift D to duplicate, and then I'm going to scale it inwards. Okay, and then this one I'm going to rename it as foot underscore CTRL. So this will be the foot control. Okay, once I've done that, I'm going to press Shift D again, and then I'm going to press E, and then I'm going to rotate in the x-axis, okay, by grabbing the red line. You can go to the channel box here and then type in 90 degrees in the x-axis so that you can have the curve in this particular orientation. I'm going to scale it down a little bit smaller, so press R and then scale it a little bit smaller. And then using the snapping tool function, you can actually hold down to V. First I'm going to press to move first, press W to go to move. And if you press to V, you notice that the center changes into a circle. Alright, so this is in snapping mode. So I'm going to snap and move this curve to the ball joint here. Okay. And then I'm going to rename this one ball underscore CTRL. And then I'm going to press Shift D again to duplicate. And then I'm going to move this new curve forward. Using V again to activate, temporarily activating the snap, holding down V, middle mouse click and drag until it lands in the center of this ball. And then I'm going to call this toe underscore CTRL, toe control. Okay, so we're going to proceed to the top. So I'm going to select this curve, press Shift D, and move this curve all the way up, this duplicate. And then I'm going to call this curve the hip underscore neck underscore CTRL, hip and neck controller. And also same thing, I'm going to use V. Alright, I'm going to use V to snap to this joint here, the main joint here. So holding down the V, middle mouse click and drag to snap to this joint. Okay, and I'm going to duplicate one more. So Shift D, duplicate this, and then I'm going to scale it down slightly, and then I'm going to press W to move. Okay, holding down to V again and snap it to this joint. Okay, once you have done that, rename it to head control. So head underscore CTRL. Okay, so now we got our controllers. Now we need to do some parenting. Okay, I need to parent this joint to this joint. So for parenting, you always select the child first, then hold down Shift to select the parent, and then you press P, and now they are parented. So if you look at the hierarchy, you will see that the head joint is now the child of the neck hip joint. Okay. So currently, this joint needs to have a IK operation added to it. Okay. Now before we add the IK operations to the joints, we're going to select the curves one by one, and we're going to click on freeze transformation, because right now all the curves have been moved. If you look at the channel box over here, all the curves have been moved and scaled. So I want to reset all these values into 0. So this is a very important process and cannot be skipped. So select the curves and click on freeze transformation. So click on the curves one by one and click on freeze transformation. So I'm going to do that one by one, freeze transformations. You can also use the repeat last command. Select the curve, press G, and you will also do the same thing. Press G to freeze. Okay, freeze the transformations. Okay, right now that all these objects, right, if it has a input or edit history, you can also delete the history. Okay, we just want to keep everything clean. You can delete the history if there is a lot of modifications done to the curves. Okay, so this one is clean. Okay, you can see here there's no history. Okay, so I'm happy with this. So right now I'm ready to do my IK operation. So what is the IK? So we need to set the bone in such a way so that we can actually grab the joints, and when we move, alright, the rest of the joints will start to move. So that is a IK, or inverse kinematics. So currently the only way we can animate or pose these bones is to rotate each joint individually. Okay, so this one is called FK. Alright, so I'm not able to do that now, or rather that for FK is not really suitable for this rig, and this is not what we are trying to do for this setup. So we're going to use IK. So make sure you're in animation mode, okay, and go ahead and click on skeleton menu. Okay, I already torn down the skeleton menu here, so you can find the same exact menu here. If you tear it down, okay, you can have easy access to the IK handle too. Okay, so there's one more controller that I need to create. That is the knee controller. So I'm going to switch over to the side view again. So tap and hold my space bar, left mouse click on Maya and go to right view. So I want to create a EP curve tool. I'm going to use the EP curve tool. So go and click on create curves, EP curve, and then click on the option box. And under the curve degree, okay, switch from, if you can, switch from cubic, alright, switch from cubic to linear. Okay, so go ahead and enable linear. So when you're in this mode, you can start to draw your curves in a linear straight line, right, like so. So I'm going to press delete to undo. So what we want to do is to create an arrow shape. So to help us, we're going to activate the snap tools on top of here. There is this grid snap tool. I'm just going to click on this magnet tool so that whatever I click on, okay, it will stick to the grid. So I'm going to create a arrow shape first, and then I'm going to end right at the first point here. So press enter to finish drawing the curve. Now whenever you create a new curve like this, the center will always be at the origin. So that's why we have our center pivot tool shortcut created here. So go ahead and click on center pivot. And next I want to scale this arrow shape down. So press R to go to scale, and then go ahead and scale it down, and then press W to move it. Okay, and I'm going to deactivate by snapping, my grid snap, by turning off. I'm going to move it right in front of the knee. Okay, so make sure you have this arrow. And right now, because I messed up the scale and also the transformations, I want to freeze transformations for this curve. So go right ahead and click on freeze transformation. Now with this curve selected, since this is a controller, I'm going to rename it and call it the knee underscore CTRL, or knee controller. Okay, so once I have all these things in place, okay, I can start to do my IK operation. So first, tap and hold the spacebar, left mouse click on Maya and go to perspective view. Alright, and first we're going to create the IK operation for this joint. So go and click on IK handle tool and click on the option box. Okay, and the tool settings will appear on the left here. Now the default current solver is called a single chain solver. Now in this tutorial, I will not explain the difference between the single chain solver and the rotate plane solver. All you need to know right now is to activate the rotate plane solver first. Okay, and right now you're in the IK mode, IK setup mode. So the first joint you need to select is this main hip neck joint here. Click it once, and then click on the ankle once, the ankle joint here. Just click on the circular portion once. if you have clicked it correctly, you would have seen a bunch of new objects appearing. This is called the IK handle, and then this is the rotation vector for the knee. Okay, so when we click on, okay, I'm going to click on the last two use button here. When we click on the rotate plane solver and we click on the handle now, it will create this option available for you. Okay, so with this, if you grab the handle, this is the handle here, and if you press W to move it, you'll be able to have this operation. Okay, you can actually move the leg and then it will pose accordingly. Alright, so this is a IK setup bone. So next we need to set up another couple of IK from this bone to this bone and from this bone to this bone. But the IK tool this time, when you click on the IK handle settings, the current solver change it into the single chain solver. And you start by creating from this bone, click on this bone once, and left mouse click on this bone. And now you can see a brand new handle appearing. Okay, I'm going to repeat to use the tool again. So click back on the last use tool button here, and then start from this bone, and then finally the toe joint bone. Okay, so now you can see I have a bunch of handles which I can use to control the bone. Okay, like so. I can grab on this one and control it. Okay, so we're almost done. Okay, we are now ready to do the parenting operations. Okay, so just follow this step by step. Okay, this smaller controller is the child of this bigger controller. So select this controller, shift select this controller, and press P to form a parent-child relationship. Okay, and this controller, okay, should be a child of this main controller. So select it, shift select this main controller, and press P once. So when I click on this main controller, the entire hierarchy is activated. Okay, so now here comes the slightly tricky portion. So make sure you do this correctly. We want to select the handle first. Okay, the IK handle 1. Then shift select IK handle 2. Right, and then lastly shift select this controller, and then you press P, so that this controller now is the parent of these two handles, so that we can do this ball tipping operation. So once you finish testing, press Z. Okay, I'm grabbing the x-axis to rotate to test that it works, so press Z to undo. Okay, next we have to parent this controller, the ball controller, to the toe controller. So select this ball controller, shift select the ball controller, or rather the toe controller, and press P. So now when I click on the toe controller, it should be the parent of all these operations here. Okay, and then finally you want to grab this handle, alright, and make it the parent, or rather make it the child of this controller. So shift select this controller and press P. So the toe controller, or rather the toe handle, which is the IK handle number 3, must be the child of the toe controller. So this time if I grab this hierarchy, and if I press rotate in the x-axis, you'll notice that you'll be able to do the tiptoe operation. Okay, finally select this curve, alright, select this toe controller, and then shift select the foot controller and press P, so that the foot controller now is controlling the entire foot structure. Okay, then finally select this foot controller and then shift select the main controller and press P, so that when I grab the main controller, okay, the whole structure, all the controllers will move. Now you notice something else. We forgot to do one parenting operation. Okay, now instead of doing parenting, we're now going to do something called constraints. Okay, so how does the constraint work? For example, if I want this controller to be influencing this bone, okay, I can use a parent, but constraint will be much better for rigging purposes. So if you go to the top of your animation menu, there is a constraint option. So click on it and click on the dotted line, pull it down here. Okay, So for point constraint, you'll be constraining the transformation. For orient constraint, you'll be constraining the rotation. Okay, let me just show you how it works. Now for constraint to work, it's a little bit different than parenting. Parenting, we always select the child first, then we select the parent for constraining. But for constraint, for parenting rather, so for constraint, you select the master first, then you select the slave. Okay, so I want this controller to control the orientation of this bone. So if you select the master first, then you select the slave, then you click on orient. Now, rather than clicking on orient straight away, we're going to click on the option box. Make sure the maintain offset is turned on. Okay, then you can go straight ahead and click on apply. Now, when you click on apply, you notice that the bone joint, alright, now the bone joint is selected. The channel box here shows the orientation, or rather the rotate axis has now turned to blue. This means that it is being controlled by something else. So we can close the option box. Now if I grab the controller now and I rotate, you'll notice that now the bone is following the, or rather is constrained to the controller. Okay, but if I were to move the controller, the bone doesn't follow. So I need to appoint another, or rather assign another constraint, which is the point constraint. So again, how this works is you select the master first, then shift select the slave. Master, shift select slave. Then you appoint a point constraint. So I'm going to click on the option box and again maintain the offset. And then hit apply. Make sure that all these are on. Layer, set to layer override and constraint axis, and click apply. So now you can see all the translate values and rotate values have turned blue, which means that if I grab, okay, always once you apply the constraint, click elsewhere to deselect and then click only the controller. And then if you move, you notice that now the bone will follow. Okay, pressing Z to undo, pressing E to rotate, and you will also follow the rotation constraint. Okay, so for this main joint, I want to, you can actually parent it to this main controller. It should still work, but for movement purposes, it's best to use a point constraint. So I'm going to select this main controller, or rather using the constraint. I'm not going to use parent. I'm going to choose this head neck head control, or sorry, the neck hip controller first, then shift select the main bone joint here, and then I'm going to apply a point constraint. Okay, so now when I grab this controller and then move it around, you can see the whole joint moves nicely. And if I click on the main controller, everything should move nicely. All the bones should follow. Only one more controller we need to set up. That is this knee controller. Okay, so grab this knee controller. We want the knee controller to control the orientation of the knee. So grab the master first. Shift select the IK handle 1, the first IK handle that you created. So shift select it, and then you appoint a pole vector. So for the pole vector option box, there's nothing to really change. You can just apply it straight away. Now if you've done this correctly, you'll see a green line coming towards the controller. Now click on the controller and move it along the x-axis. You'll notice now you can adjust the twist. Now if you have done all of this correctly, that means you have rigged your foot, okay, your toes, everything successfully. The next thing you want to do is to apply a skinning operation to the mesh. Okay, so I'm going to click on the layer operation so that I can select the skin or select the mesh. Then I'm going to press 4 to go to wireframe mode so that I can select the main joint. So go ahead and select the main joint, which is your neck hip joint. It's the main hierarchy. Holding down the shift and select the mesh. Okay, so that both of these are selected. Go under skin in your animation menu and click on bind skin and select smooth bind. Alright, so once you have successfully bound the skin to the skeleton or the joints, it will turn pink. Okay, so now you can test out your rig to see whether it works. Okay, so we do not need to see the handles and joints anymore. So inside your viewport right, the show menu here, okay, you can actually disable the joints and the IK handle. So you can uncheck the joints and the IK handles. Okay, so now you can actually animate this character just by using the controllers alone. So I can select this, I can also select this controller, I can rotate his head, okay, I can stretch his head out a little bit if I want, okay, and I can rotate forward or backwards, okay. And also if I grab this main controller here, and if I move it down slightly, okay, like this, so I bend the knee, I can grab this knee controller, I can make it do the twist, okay, just by moving it sideways. Okay, so just to test, make sure that my character can do the tiptoe like that. Okay, so you can also do the ball roll like this. And then because my foot controller is already parented to all these, you can also do the heel tap. Okay, so essentially once you have completed all these operations, okay, your character is ready to be animated. So this will be your first fully rigged character. So if you follow the steps, okay, follow exactly what I show you in this video, okay, you'll be able to successfully finish rigging this character.